like the photographs that I take, it's again, it's not me being alone or lonely. I'm sorry, but it's like expressing that feeling of being alone, but it's not sadness. You know what I'm saying? It's like we have to understand that it's fine to be alone. You know what I'm saying? Like at the end of the day, you have yourself. You love yourself. No one knows yourself better than you do. So why can't you be alone by you know what I'm saying? Like by yourself and just exist. Like I want people to understand that regardless of whatever scenario you find yourself in, even if you feel like you may be dealing with literally then like everything that you possibly could, it's like you're alone but not lonely. And if you need someone, then there you know what I'm saying, there is always someone there.
Wow.
So I guess that can be, I guess that would be the best way to describe my style.
That's amazing, man. Sippin' with Sakari. Haamza, or Ham as I like to call you, man. Welcome, brother.
Thank you, sir.
What's going on, man? Thank you for joining me on another episode of Sippin' with Sakari, man. What you sipping on, brother?
Well, I got some tomato bisque soup. And some water.
That's some water. I love it. I got a little seltzer right here. You know, it's healthier than soda, so we're vibing out with that. lemon lime. You feel me? It's like a bootleg version of Sprite. We good. But yo, man, thank you so much for joining us today. I mean, I really appreciate you taking the time out to introduce Haamza Edwards to the world, a photographer that's based in Philadelphia, man. I mean, you've been doing some dope stuff, man. You know what I mean? You've been featured in Esquire, Philly Mag. I mean, so many more places as well. I mean, your shots are dope. Point blank period. Your shots are dope.
Appreciate it.
You know what I mean? You shot for some amazing chefs, including Omar Tate, who's been featured in Time 100 and Esquire Chef of the Year, man, who actually is your brother, correct?
Yes, he is. Oldest.
Oldest brother. That's amazing, man. You know what I mean? And I know you have a bright future ahead of yourself as well. So, man, I would love for you just to introduce yourself to everyone listening. You know, who is Haamza Edwards?
That's kind of feels like now is definitely a bigger question. I've always been in a position to not think of myself as like someone particularly special, just someone who likes to pay attention to his surroundings and just capture what he can, however he can, and just make something all the time. But if I had to make it a complete thought, I would say I'm an artist. That's it.
That's beautiful, man. And artistry comes in so many different forms, you know. That's one of the things. That's one of the things beautiful about this platform is like, you know, artistry comes in so many different forms. Everybody's an artist. You know, a chef is an artist, a photographer, whether you're a graphic designer, a painter, whether you're a R&B artist or a hip hop producer or a hip hop rapper, whatever, you know, country. Everybody's an artist in a sense. You know what I mean? So speak a little bit about your upbringing and like early developments of this artistry. You know, did you always want to shoot photos or think? Did you do it like coming out the womb? Like talk to us a little bit about your upbringing.
A bit about my upbringing. So I had no inclination to take any kind of pictures at all. Of course, being a millennial, we were being born in the 90s. You know, we weren't really in an age to take pictures just as much as we do now. So you know, we had the cameras where you would, you know, click out and click back in. We had Polaroids and stuff like that, but they didn't really last in our family. We had little disposable Kodak cameras and stuff like that, but still, again, they would just pop up one day in like a little pack that you get from Walgreens, something like that. But my earliest brush with artistry would be all of my brothers can draw. Every single one of them. They grew up knowing they just had the innate ability to draw very, very well. So what we would do in the summers when we had off from school, we would we would all get together and we would take like a mile, like a couple mile walk to the library and print out Dragon Ball Z pictures, and we would go home and we'd be like, yo, we about to draw these. We would sit at the kitchen table and we would draw them, and we would just compare pictures.
Wow.
Of course, me being the youngest, I didn't have the artistic ability to actually be able to recreate anything that we printed. So, I did what I could. I would pay attention to what they did, see if I could kind of make some kind of Frankenstein version of like a little bit of everybody. And then the crazy thing is, they all excelled in different areas of being able to draw. So Omar was really good at, Omar was like a photocopier. He could look at a picture and draw it exactly that way. My second oldest brother, Kasim, he got really good with drawing like realistic people. So like he did figure drawing, like dynamic figure drawing. And then my brother, who's right before me, Nasruddin, he was like really good at I guess you could say, not cartoony, but like he was more like he could create his own characters rather than copy another character. And then there's me, trying to, like I'm looking at each line, doing it like, you know what I mean?
Sure.
I was never really good at it until I stopped thinking about it so much. And then, of course, like as I got older, I started asking myself, like, what constitutes something as art? Does it have to be perfect? Does it have to not be perfect? And then if you look at any piece of art, you look at it and then you automatically think, wow, like that really is perfect. You know what I mean? Doesn't matter who it was, what era, what Renaissance, doesn't matter. You always know for a fact that it is perfect. And then I started asking myself, why do I feel like my art isn't perfect? And when I found a love for photography, I started asking the same question of like, how do I know that this isn't perfect? It's not just for me. I'm creating something. So that's just something that took me in every direction that I've ever done with my own art and capturing like my world.
Wow. So did someone just hand you a camera and was like, "Yo, here, like Merry Christmas," or like how did you get that camera into your hand?
Honestly, kind of, sort of, really.
Wow.
I was out here with a really cheap camera phone, and I was taking pictures just like out on my walks, or like walking to the laundromat, something like that. Took a picture of a tree and showed it to some people. And I'm like, "Yo, you're like, this is really nice." And I'm just like, "Oh, thanks."
All right. Yeah.
And I met my first mentor, Aiden Un, who he pulled me to the side one day and was like, "Yo, like you should probably think about doing photography. I mean, even if it's just a hobby, you should just do it because you're really good at it." Wow. And I was like, I never really thought about that. And he was like, "Yo, I got 3 cameras." He does freelance filmmaking, full time. And he was like, "Yeah, I don't really use this camera. I can show you what I know, and then if you want to go forward with it, go for it." That was I want to say maybe 7, almost 8 years ago now.
Wow. So you started to learn about how to kind of like perfectly imperfect, right? Like understanding perfection, understanding that's just perception, right? And really finding that beauty. And then you met this mentor, right? So what's the background of the mentor? Is he still a friend of yours today? Did he have any professional training? Was he really dope? Is he still really dope? Like talk a little bit about him as well.
So I actually met him in a martial arts class that we both studied, Capoeira Angola.
Okay.
It's Afro-Brazilian martial art.
Wow. Okay.
So when I met him, I was under the impression that he only did video. But everything that he taught me because photography was more of a hobby. He grew up in France, went to school for I want to say psychology or something like that.
Okay.
And I think he did a class project and made a documentary of it, and like he aced that project. And he was like, "Yeah, actually, I kind of love doing this more than the actual core study work of psychology." So when he pulled me to the side, he was showing me a lot of his work. It is documentary work, a lot of it, but it it was a very familiar feeling of what he was showing me, and like
Mm,
how he was explaining each technique, or like what to look for, certain colors, how to break things down into layers, or um, even something so much as like bringing more attention to one particular detail in a photograph by like enhancing like a highlight or something like that. So
yeah,
it sounded very wordy, but it felt like second nature, because like he would ask me very specific questions of, okay, when you look at this photograph, how what did you first see? What were you drawn to? What colors
wow,
pop? What colors do you remember? You know
yeah,
what I mean? And like um as my mentor, he would take me out on shoots and he would ask me the same questions of like, okay, so if we set it up like this, what would you do? How would you do it? What kind of lighting pattern? You know what I mean? And it really gave me the environment to just be able to not only just understand, but also remember it easier, because, if you're in the middle of it and you can, create this dynamic setting for yourself, you know what I mean? Then you got it. You don't have to, you know, retract and retrace your steps. You just go
mhm,
forward, and then you continue to learn more on top of that. Because at
wow.
some point, he was like, yeah, I don't really have anything else to teach you, and I'd still, you know what I mean, like,
Yeah,
I knew everything that he knew, but like he's a filmmaker, and I chose photography, so kind of had to veer off at some point. But like out of everything that he taught me, I still think about to this day of
wow.
literally just about any photograph that I've ever taken.
You know, I mean, it's so beautiful to hear you talk about the artistry of photography, right, and cameras and things like that, but also the craft, right? Like things that I don't personally know, right? Like where do your eyes go when you take a certain photo? Like that's so interesting to me. You know what I mean? Because and then
Mm-hmm.
understanding that you kind of had this natural God-given talent per se, because like I think it's a mix, like LeBron James is LeBron James, right? He had to work to get there, but there's also certain things that God gave him. So just for you to have that kind of natural intent, you know what I mean? I feel like I was born to be a chef, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
There's certain things that I have that's natural intent to me, understanding what flavors and this goes well with this, or just having a palate. But you have to work up towards that, right? And you
Right.
have to like kind of learn about the ins and the outs and understanding your craft per se. How important was it to have this mentor for you to kind of sit you down and say, "Hey, I see something in you," and then teach you those little nicks and knacks? Like how important was that to you?
Um, Initially, I didn't think. Again, it was something that I definitely felt like I needed. Excuse me. But I didn't really understand how important it was until, I decided to go to school for it, and I met other people who did the same thing.
Okay.
So, so when I decided to go to school for photography, what I found that was that, well, one, the school kind of spaced out everything that I've learned over the course of a few months, over the course of like, I went to school for maybe a year and a half, almost 2 years. They kind of spaced everything out. And I was picking things up with my mentor like by the week, you know what I
Mm,
mean?
yeah.
And it was committed to memory and it was implemented immediately. As I met other people that did the same thing, I found that, well, backstep a little bit. Also during school, I found that um, you also need more of a knowledge of technicality rather than also just a talent, which is why I actually like going to school for the duration that I did. But once I met other people, and it seemed like either one or the other was, absent, it just kind of had me like remembering, like, hey, like, yo, like if somebody always they need that person to just push them that extra step. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I was thankful that I was able to get those extra few steps ahead of the game, because when I was in school, they were explaining everything. Hey, uh, f-stop and ISO, all that stuff, and I'm like, oh, like you mean this? And they're like, yeah, exactly. And I'm like, okay, what next? And I was just knocking down classes. You know what I'm saying? Like A's, B's,
Wow.
and I was running through the curriculum like nothing.
Did you love it?
Um,
Did you love
oh yeah,
photography at that point?
oh yeah, I loved it, man. So
That's so
like
cool.
I feel like I kind of did it backwards. A lot of people, they either don't go to school at all and they just find their place in their career and just go forward with it, or you know, they go to school, they finish, and then you know they go do that, and then they meet like a mentor. I met the mentor. Um, went to school. When I met the mentor, went into the field, went to school, met another mentor, and then went back into the field, and then I fell into my career. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Um,
that's
so I,
awesome.
you know what I mean? Like, there's nothing wrong with going back to, you know, just fit in, get in where you fit in for real. But
Right.
um, yeah, like meeting a lot of people that didn't know what the hell I was talking about, you know, in the same classrooms or, you know, in the same shoots, or, you know, just someone looking at me with my camera, like, hey, you know, what you shoot with? Oh, you know, I took these photos, and I'm looking at them like, you probably shouldn't show anybody these.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Like it's like it's real crazy. Or someone's just like, oh yeah, you know, my such and such does photography. They show me their work, and I'm like, oh, nice. You know what I'm
Nice.
saying?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
but like you got to understand that there's still some things that you don't know, even though
Of
you
course.
know what the next person doesn't.
Right.
So I'm grateful to have known that even through like everything that I've experienced, or the people that I've met that mentored me in doing what I do, I
Hmm.
still have that understanding that I don't really know much about, you know, my craft.
Either.
I don't know enough about my craft. You know what I mean?
Right. You can still learn. We're all still learning. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? So it's you never stop learning, which is the beautiful thing about life. So you finish school, you meet another mentor, and basically this transitions into this being your career. What is the difference between a photographer that does this as a hobby, which is totally fine, versus someone that this is their career, this is what they do, this is how they feed their family?
Um, actually, I'm glad that you asked me that question, because I'm gonna go back to my college class, my history of photography class. There was actually a portion of amateur photography versus professional photography.
Okay.
So uh, I, I I think it was during the Industrial Revolution. Um, it was a huge influx of photography. So you know, people wanted like tintype photographs taken. They wanted family portraits. They wanted this. They wanted that. Right. So this grew into like a huge movement of people distinguishing themselves between professional photographers and amateur photographers. So the amateur photographers were more seen as people who could uh, replicate, or what's the word? Not copy, but I guess you could say they were just more concerned with pushing out certain products out the door. You know what I
Okay.
mean? They got people lined up outside of their shop. They got a camera on a tripod. They're like, hey, you know, I want family portraits. They sit down, take the picture. All right, they're moving out the door. Next person comes in, same thing. Around that same time was also my favorite era of art, which was the surrealist movement, where people were, you know, they were testing imagery of, you know, reality. So like what more professional photographers did, um, they started staging certain aspects of reality that didn't seem real. So they would have like a full-on studio, and they would take photographs in certain ways that would honestly test people's, you know, perspective of reality. Or other photographers who did landscapes, you know, they would take the time out to figure out exactly what they needed to do in order to take a specific photograph. There were certain people who would sit in certain areas of like their cities hours at a time, waiting for a precise moment of taking photographs. That's what's distinguished an amateur photographer rather than a professional photographer. Someone who is, um, I guess, not artistically inclined, but more emotionally attached to what they're creating,
Mm.
um, which can make all the difference. If you're talking about someone who does something as a hobby versus someone who wants to do this for their life, like say, for example, you as a chef,
Hmm.
uh, say, like, you know, at some point you had a job at McDonald's flipping burgers, but you didn't
I
want to be a
did.
chef. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I did. Real story.
You
Yeah.
did. Oh.
Yeah.
well, okay. Well, let's say
I did. I
let's.
didn't want to be a chef at that time, but yes, I did.
Oh, but then it still stands. But like you know what I mean? Like you're flipping burgers, but you don't necessarily feel like a chef. You know what I'm saying? You're just
Correct.
you're trained to make something very specific.
Yep.
You know what I
You're a
mean?
cook versus a chef.
Right. Exactly. So it's like there's always a dichotomy between someone who does it for money versus someone who wants to do it because they love doing it. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? It's like I could pick up I don't know, some $100 digital camera and just point it at random shit and then be like, yeah, I do photography. You know what I'm saying? Or I could look at Ansel Adams and be like, he's not really a photographer. You know what I'm saying? Or look at Ansel Adams and be like, yo, he is the epitome of photography or something like that. You know what I'm saying?
What does it mean to you to be a Black photographer?
Um,
Is there any pressure that you feel like you have on yourself with society, or how is the space? Like, speak to us a little bit about the industry.
as a Black photographer, right now it is as a Black photographer, it is a bit of it's pretty interesting, honestly, especially in this day and age. Um, I didn't really think of myself as I didn't feel like I had to think of myself as a Black photographer up until last year during the riots that were happening due to police brutality and stuff like that. And I was out at the riots, not rioting, of course, but I was taking photographs of everything that was happening. And I felt like if there was ever a need for photos to be taken, it was precisely in that moment that I was in.
Mm,
Um, I will say that, several points in my life, I felt like there were a lot of people doing photography, but not many Black people doing photography in certain areas. So, you think of, oh, where's the supply and demand? That's the full extent that I've ever thought about it up until last year or 2020.
hmm.
Um, but it kind of feels like you're constantly like tightroping along like a razor edge. I remember I was posting photographs of like marches and shit like that, and I remember people inboxing me saying, "Hey, be careful posting people's faces because people were disappearing."
Wow.
Um, stuff like that, and other people were like, "Oh my god, like the photographs you're taking, like they brought me to tears," and other people were like,
Wow.
uh, some people were like, "Yeah, you shouldn't be posting pictures of white people," stuff like that. And it's like I'm not really taking pictures for anyone's approval. I mean, like like what I'm saying. Like I'm not looking for anyone's feedback. Like I do understand that people were disappearing once they were found, without a mask, or like they were stopped by police or something like that, and they disappeared and they end up being beat or something like that. Like I do understand that, and I did take heed to that. But at the same time, like people contacted me saying, yeah, you can't be posting pictures like that. They're too like so racy, and I was posting them certain social media platforms, and they were like, oh, you got to take this down, or like they're against community standards. And I'm like, yo, like, what is it that y'all want to see? Because if I leave it up to CNN, Fox, and literally any major publication, they were saying literally everything that wasn't happening. You know what I'm saying? Like I was out there at marches where it was completely peaceful. Um, cars pulled over, they joined the marches, all of like anything you could think of that would mean a peaceful protest were literally happening. And we were tear gassed. Like we were literally cut off both sides of a peaceful protest, or not even a protest, just a peaceful march, and we were tear gassed. And I photographed all of that. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
So I didn't really feel like I was specifically a Black photographer. I felt like a Black person taking photos. You know what I'm saying? Up
Yeah.
until that moment where it was like, yo, like I feel like literally any photograph that I take that is under my name literally makes me a Black photographer, and I am only a Black photographer. That's it.
Wow. Do you feel taking photos gives you a voice, because you speak about the feedback that you didn't ask from society, but obviously, you know, that comes and goes. That's part of the life that we live as artists, right? Putting our art out into the world. Do you feel that like being a photographer gives you a voice to kind of spread this, whether it's unity, love, realities, like into the world?
Yes. So I'm not I've never been the best at expressing myself verbally or emotionally for that matter. I know it's, like I feel like it's a trope to be like, hey, men don't express themselves very well. You know what I'm
Right,
saying?
right,
But
right.
like I was always like really quiet like as a child. And like my upbringing, I had three older brothers, and my mother and father were both in my life, but at the same time, everybody was in their own world, going through their own things. So like I always felt like I did kind of grow up alone. So instead of like feeling like I can reach out to certain people and talk about things that I may be feeling or things that I may be going through, I always decided to just, silently deal with it or just
Mhm,
find my own way.
mhm,
And, it didn't necessarily uh, give me the opportunity to grow up in a very healthy way. But like with photography, I feel like um, it does give me the voice to actually be able to express what it is that I feel through what I see. So I feel like my photographs speak very loudly about the type of person that I am. So like what you'll see in a lot of my photographs would be, softer colors, um, softer edges. Sometimes it'll be sharper, but like it'll be more bold in certain colors. Or I don't know, it'll always be some kind of underlying theme or layer in my photos that I want people specifically to see, regardless of how chaotic it may look. You know what I'm saying? And I kind of feel like my character speaks to fine detail and very specific detail. Like always told myself apply pressure when needed. So like if I feel like my most powerful photographs will be just a tiny little detail in a photograph, just one small detail, and it may not always be obvious, but I feel like I always get my point across.
it's attention to detail, you know, and
Hmm.
that's what makes it that just that next level. And I see that in all the photos that you do. I mean, your photos are stunning, you know, sincerely.
Appreciate
It's
it.
just something special about it. And we spoke about this before, but I feel like, you know, with your photos specifically, and you spoke a little bit about it, but they just they're you, you know, they're your style. That like I can't describe your style. I would love for you to describe your style to us, but I feel like every time I see any of your photos, I feel like it's genuinely and authentically you. So tell us a little bit about your style.
Um, again, um, retracking my steps back to kind of like that fine detail. And also, me feeling like sort of like a loner growing up. I feel like my style usually enhances like a feeling of not being alone, but solitude. Um, so a lot of my photographs, which would be, taken in like a crowd or something like that, you'll see that like one particular person will pop out of like, the foreground or something like that. Or like it'll look like a person is like glowing, or say like any of my like wilderness shots or like nature shots, it'll be like of one particular tree, just looking like it's standing in the foreground of like literally everything else, or just a specific plant, or what I'm saying, like even my studio stuff, it usually gives some form of feeling of like alone but not lonely. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm. Wow.
Which was something that I had to grow into myself, because it, I felt like for a long time that I was lonely. You know what I'm saying? I felt like I always needed someone or like some kind of person in my life to validate me.
Yeah.
But once I understood exactly why I was feeling that way and what it is that I needed, I felt like it wasn't necessarily alone. It was just that I needed to understand what it is that I was seeking. And
Mm.
then I found a way to give that to myself. So it's like the photographs that I take, it's again, it's not me being alone or lonely, I'm sorry, but it's like expressing that feeling of being alone, but it's not sadness. You know what I'm saying? It's like we have to understand that it's fine to be alone. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? Like at the end of the day, you have yourself. You love yourself. No one knows yourself better than you do. So why wouldn't
100%.
you be? Why can't you be alone by you know what I'm saying? Like by
Yeah.
yourself and just exist.
Hmm.
Like I want people to understand that regardless of whatever scenario you find yourself in, even if you feel like you may be dealing with literally then like everything that you possibly could, it's like you're alone but not lonely. And if you need someone, then there you know what I'm saying, there is always someone there.
Wow.
So I guess that can be, I guess that would be the best way to describe my style.
That's amazing, man. That's that's incredible. Genuinely. I'm lost for words, man. I mean, obviously I never heard, you be able to describe that, but it's beautiful because, people don't think about it, but photography gives people, an outlet, and photography has given you an outlet to express yourself, something of comfort, and
Mhm.
obviously this hasn't been an easy road. This hasn't been, an easy road to get here. So speak a little bit about your challenges along the way, like, because
Mhm.
you love this thing, right? But sometimes it can get really, really difficult. So speak to us about the challenges. Speak about the tenacity that you have to persevere through these difficult times.
Um, yeah, man, that's actually like a really great question. And honestly, any other time, I don't think I honestly feel comfortable enough to answer this, honestly. But
Mm.
um, like I suffer from like severe depression. So what I found myself doing a lot of the time would be just like sort of retreating into a shell to just like recharge more or less, you know. So like in my entire career of taking photographs, what I would end up doing, I would just go through these long dry spells of not taking any photos at all. You know what I'm saying? And I would just go back and just look at everything that I've taken and just be like, yeah, I don't know why, but I can't post anything right now. You know what I'm saying? And I may be sitting like, I think now I may be sitting on like over 60,000 photographs. You know what I'm saying? Good and bad.
Wow.
So like I've been doing this consistently for almost 8 years now. But every couple of months or so, I may hit a moment where I feel like I don't really need anyone to look at any photographs that I need to put out. But when the time comes that I do come back, it's like it'll usually be like a self portrait of me and exactly how I'm feeling. You know what I'm saying?
Of
Like
course.
um uh another thing about challenges of me and my photography was that I had a pretty lengthy moment of feeling like my art didn't necessarily need my face in it or my name. So what I did, I ended up like going on my social media platforms and just like taking down any pictures of my face. And like I kind of felt like as an artist, a face or a name doesn't necessarily mean anything. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? It's like I know what it is that I'm doing it for, and I did it because I love to do it, and this is the image that I wanted to put out. But like, you don't need to know who I am for that. You know what I'm saying? The only thing that I want you to know is how I'm feeling through
Mhm.
this creation, and that's
Mhm.
it. If you
Mhm.
understand, you understand. If you don't, then sit on it. You know what I'm saying? Think about it. Like for real. Like um, another thing would be like doing this as like a full-time freelance photographer as well is what I'm saying, like I gotta fight against all of that constantly because it's not just that I'm doing it for love anymore. I'm doing it to pay the bills. But what I'm saying, like every day, I get up and regardless of how I'm feeling, whether I may be like tip top shape or I may be wanting to hide from the world more or less, is like what all right, so what can I make out of it? You know what I'm saying? And I know that regardless of how low I may be feeling or how high I'm feeling, it's like there's something that can come of it, even if I don't want anybody to see it.
Mm,
So I feel like that it's kind of, it sounds kind of simple saying it out loud, but at the same time, like in my mind, it's like a constant struggle daily.
of
You know
course.
what I'm saying? Like to fight against that feeling of feeling like you shouldn't be doing anything or you can't do anything versus you should be doing something that you love. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, man. Um, First of all, thank you for sharing that with me. And I appreciate you being able to share that genuinely. It takes a lot of strength in that, you know what I mean? And people need to hear this because, one thing that Diddy said, someone asked him, like, well, how do you become Diddy, right? Or become successful? His advice was become fearless and know your worth. And I was like, he's like, it's simple, but I was like, no, it's more than that because knowing your worth, I think, is so important, and
Hmm.
feeling confident enough to be like, no, this is a picture by Haamza Edwards. Like this is my picture that maybe you don't have to be in it. You want the art to speak for itself, but just knowing your worth and being like, I put time, effort, love, passion into each photo that I do. I want to share with the world, and people need to know. You know, People need to know what it's like, where it's coming from, who's it coming from. You know what I mean? And
Hmm.
and 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 it's so important that you speak about this struggle because you're not the only one that goes through these struggles. You know, and those struggles are the things that will help people get through it. You know, and then
Hmm.
that's what's so amazing about NFTs is like we'll be able to reach so many people from around the world, right, and share your work, your art with so many different people, right? Um, for them to connect with it in different ways, whether it's a protest, whether it's nature, whether it's food. Um, Speak a little bit about. I want to know how you kind of got into food photography a little bit as well. Obviously your brother's a chef.
Hmm.
Did you love food? Like, did you just pick up a camera and start shooting food? Do you like shooting food more than nature? Is it everything that you love? Like, speak a little bit about food photography.
Yeah. So with food, um, I kind of just fell into food photography, honestly. So I kind of had this idea of trying to become like this hugely versatile photographer. You know what I'm saying? You name the job, I can do it. You know what I'm saying?
That's good.
That was like my catchphrase. But like, I would just put stuff together and around the house, and I would just take random pictures of just things. So it started with like putting together like a little fruit bowl and like this nice little wooden what bamboo bowl, taking pictures like that. And at some point, Omar hit me up. It was like, hey, like I need you to take these photos, and that happened. And then I had
Well,
another client.
hold on. Because we're just not gonna just breeze over that real quick. Omar calls you, says, "Hey, I need some food photos," and then that happens. That is, I mean, amazing work, right? That's first of all, that's how
Mhm.
you and I met, right? First and foremost.
Mhm.
But Omar tells me, yeah, my brother shoots. Okay, cool. No, you shoot. Like, you know what I mean? You're like, you came in there and attention to detail, professionalism, you know what I mean? Whether you have the equipment, there's a certain level of, you have to just kind of go into the background and not feel in the way, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
In a busy kitchen, you know what I mean? Your food photography is incredible. And I don't want to just
Just brush
go
over
over.
it.
Yeah, I
Just
don't want
brush
to
over.
just go brush over. You know what I mean? Um, Omar trusted you with his food because he's an artist as well, right? He trusted you
Mhm.
with his food, with his baby, and you took it and you skyrocketed it, and you make his work look even more amazing. And I just need to give you your kudos, give you your flowers to let you know that. So now you
Appreciate it.
continue. You can continue what you were
All
saying.
right. So with that being said, I think the first dinner he had me shoot was um the Jenkins Johnson Gallery in
Okay.
partnership with Modern Museum of Art in Brooklyn. It was I will say I think it was the Homeostasis gallery. I may be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was that gallery. And that was the first time I shot food in a photojournalistic way, which was exactly what he was looking for. He wanted it. He wanted the food photos to speak for themselves, but he wanted it to tell a story. So that's kind of been like a constant theme and work him and I do together. And everything in between, was either like be honeysuckle something, or like a few clients here and there that wants like a cookbook done or something like that. I want to say maybe 2 or 3 years ago, I had a client who was making a vegan cookbook. That turned out really nice as well. So like I said, I kind of just fell into it.
It just fell into your lap,
and just fell into it, and it was like, this is kind of familiar.
This is
I can do that.
And yeah, man. I mean, that's obviously one of the reasons why I reached out to you to connect with me on Noble Promise Studios, right? Which we're working on together. I feel like your stories tell a picture, and we're working on this NFT collection that's going to transpire into a cookbook, but also is actually going to give people access to a speakeasy that we're building, right? And only people that own this NFT, right, will have access to the speakeasy. And when they enter the speakeasy, they'll be able to see your work. You know what I mean? They'll be able to see an actual physical piece of your work with your name on it, of some of your most dopest works, man. And I'm so honored to be working with you on this project, and utilizing obviously amazing technology. I would love to hear, speak to me a little bit about NFTs. How did you get into it? How did you get introduced to it? Has it changed your perspective on photography? Has it increased your perspective? Like, what do you think it can do for people?
So it's funny that, my first brush up with NFT or hearing the word or acronym was from you. But I remember like you called me one day, told me about it. And then literally after that one conversation, it started popping up like on everything. You know what I'm saying? It was people on my timelines like, hey, NFTs. And I'm like, wow, okay. So you know what I'm saying?
Like, oh, this thing is real.
Like, all right. I pulled out the notebook, started, just going down the list. So as a photographer though, I find that it kind of gives us sort of like a more comfortable spot in passive income. So I feel like photographers specifically fall into, selling prints or, selling service. That's it. No in between. There's literally nothing else you can do. So NFTs, it kind of solidifies selling prints as well as showing an ability to produce. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, say, anybody can have a portfolio of anything. You know what I'm saying? Even as a chef, you would have a portfolio of, hey, I made these dishes. You know what I'm saying? Or, I made this menu. If you reach out to these restaurants and they will tell you my experience in the kitchen or something like that. As a photographer, I feel like an NFT, of course, as it switches hands, the audience like widen at the same time. It's like it kind of adds more value to the work because it's not just a specific person looking for a specific thing. It's more like I understand this person's work and I love their work. I'm not looking for, I'm not, I'm saying, I'm not looking for, oh, does he take food photos or, does he take portraits or does he go to marches and take pictures or does he take pictures of plants? There's more like oh, this is a photographer. Let me see what he does. And then, they look at a catalog of work and it's like, I like what he does or, I don't like what he does. You know what I'm saying? Either way, it doesn't have to be for everyone, but, people who will love the work will come to it and they will love the work.
That's what art's about, man. And my favorite thing about this NFT thing, especially with your specific collection, is we're going to be able to inspire so many people, right? Whether it's someone fighting struggles that they go from day to day, and maybe you're going to inspire, the next person to become a photographer, right? But also, one thing that's coming with these NFTs is actually a photography class access to you and your knowledge, right? All these things that you've learned from your mentors over the past years, about to be 10 years, you're going to be able to pass that along to someone else, right? Via class, via in New York City, when we do a meetup and people are doing demonstrations and things like that, you'll be able to interact with people, give them recommendations on cameras, tell them about things that they need to focus on, give them resources of abilities to look into. This is the book you should read. This is a class you should check out. This is a lens that might be interesting. You're providing real value, and you'll be able to help people find an outlet like you found the outlet with photography. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things, man. We're just trying to help people, and that's what it's about, bringing real value, you know what I mean, and doing great things. I got one final question for you before you get out of here, man. What's your reason why? If you have a reason why, what's the reason why you do what you do? You work so hard, you create these beautiful photos. Like, why?
Keep it plain and simple. Nobody can do it. No one can see what I can see. You know what I'm saying? Like, we could be looking at the same, light pole, or like, street light. We could be standing in the same fog with drinking the same bottle of water, with, you know what I mean, like having the same conversation and with the same emotions, and we still wouldn't see the same exact thing.
Wow. That's huge. That's to speak on that a little bit, that's the same reason why I give out my recipes. You can make it, but it's not going to taste the same.
Exactly. So it's like, we could stand in the same exact spot and not see the same exact thing. I feel like that's, if it's not, if you don't have that reasoning under your belt, then it's like, then you probably feel like you can do the same thing anybody else can, and vice versa. You know what I mean? Or you're looking to do what the next person can. Like, and if you focus so wholeheartedly on that, then I don't think you're going to do anything besides try to recreate what anybody else is doing.
100%. Do you have any parting words, any advice for young photographers or photographers your age? Any advice, any parting words that you would like to leave the audience with, to know about you or what you're doing?
Not necessarily what I'm doing, because what I'm saying, I do what I do, but anybody who is looking to just do anything dealing with creating something is, stand by your work. You know what I mean? If someone asked you, what were you looking at when you took this picture, or what were you thinking about when you painted this this art piece, or when you made this dish, you know what I'm saying? Don't be afraid to be like, you know what, I was just trying something. Or, if there was a more in-depth reason, then explain your reasoning. It's not their job to get it. It came from you. It's a part of you. It's who you are. That's it. You don't necessarily owe them anything else. If you want to expand on that, then don't be afraid to. That's it.
Whew. You heard it here. Words from Haam, man. Thank you, brother. Where can people find you, man? Where can people see some of your work?
I'm on Instagram, Haam Solo, HAAM_solo. I'm also on Facebook, sort of. Twitter as well. Twitter more so. And if you want to go the extra mile, you can actually check out my Behance. It's going to be Haamza Edwards, HAAMZA Edwards, on Behance. It's actually a huge platform for creatives, stuff like that.
Wow.
But yeah,
amazing. Yeah, man. And we got some stuff cooking up for Q1 of 2022 that you'll be able to see your work. And I'm so excited, man. I'm so honored to be working with you, man. I'm so excited, thrilled. I can't wait to showcase your work, my work, everyone's work with the world. just fired up, man. So thank you, man. I really appreciate your time, as time is the most valuable asset. So thank you, my brother. Appreciate you.
Oh, man.
And we'll see
Thank
you
you for
soon.
having me. All right, bro.
Love. What's going on, YouTube? If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. It's never been a better time than now. So come follow along. Come see the ups, the downs, the entire process of this thing that we call life. So make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And we'll see you in the next video. Love.
Sippin' with Sakari.